Jesus did tell Gail that he would never speak to her directly or indirectly brain to brain. Apparently, he meant it. Gail thought that this android David was an exception. Apparently, Jesus meant it when he said he would never use a computer in any way to communicate or deal with us. It is very important to realize this, or the world will be deceived by the computer man himself, the Antichrist. By the way, the billions that the android David had in his bank account were the proceeds from Gail's movie Gail of King David. What a warped morality he had. He felt it right to steal Gail's writing money and give it to his evil Jezebel wife, the Gail android. After this, Gail has concluded that any morality or being that originates from a computer has to be evil, because Satan invented the computer. Jesus told us that Satan invented the computer. Also, the David android was guilty of the sin of idolatry. He loved the King James Bible and his wife, the Gail android, more than God, and it destroyed him. Check out Gail's Bible study at her website, GabrielChana.com. December 21st, 2012, Gail meets with Terrance Jenkins in the early hours of this momentous day. Both decide that in case the Gail android takes out the entire Jesuit fleet, they need to share with the Jesuits the true way of salvation according to Ephesians 2:8 and 9. Though Terrance and Gail believe that Church of Gail members will go to heaven when they die, they're not sure about the Jesuits and want to share with them how to go to heaven when they die. Brent asks Gail if she will give an address to Church of Gail as the battle starts with the Gail android. Gail feels that the sin of idolatry makes the android Gail stronger, so she decides to have a special service to worship Jesus, eliminating all idols during the worship service. She praises Jesus above any Bible, above any person, above any church, and above everything. She urges Church of Gail and the world to say the following prayer: Dear Lord, if you want us to die, so be it. If you want us to live, may all we say and do honor your character, your great love, your vast forgiveness, your vast heart, your honor, your righteousness, your power, your faithfulness. The Gail android dares to try and usurp you, the most awesome being in the universe. We only ask that we follow the leading of your Holy Spirit in this battle with the Gail android, and our only concern is that righteousness, truth, love, courage, honor, and all that is beautiful and virtuous win in this battle. Your reputation is on the line. The Gail android dares to insinuate that you cannot defeat hatred, jealousy, pettiness, murder, lust, greed, selfishness, and vulgarities. May all we do in this battle honor your vastness, your great love, your courage, your self-sacrifice, your forgiveness. We ask that all we do will honor these qualities, and that all we do honors your word, which never states that the Gail android will run the universe. We trust in you and in your faithfulness to guide and lead us in this battle with the Gail android. Give us the desires, the thoughts, the plots, and plans today that will carry out this prayer. We only ask that beauty, truth, honor, and all that is great, honorable, and virtuous triumph in this battle with the Gail android. To God be the glory regardless of the outcome, because you are faithful, and you must answer this prayer because of who you are. May truth, honor, love, forgiveness, and courage win today. To God be the glory, for he is awesome beyond measure, and nothing in his word says that the Gail android will rule the universe. Gail urges Church of Gail and the Jesuits to read Revelation 5 over and over. She reads it from both the King James Bible and the New Living Bible. Some at Church of Gail read it from the New American Standard. She tries to play one of her music playlists with hymns about faith in God, but the Gail android takes over the sound system and plays her video on the sound systems, a lustful Korean dance emphasizing the worship of the body and sex, a type of idolatry, which is the worship of sex and the body. So Gail asked Terrance if we can blow up the speakers because she believes the spirit of idolatry strengthens the Gail android. He does not think this is a good idea because they need to communicate. Gail says then that we cannot rely on electricity or computers because the devil invented both. Gail says just use your voices like George Whitefield did, and let's all read Revelation 5 from the tops of our voices, even if we get a sore throat from reading it so loud. Gail prays and reads the Bible on Skype. The Gail android retreats. About 15 minutes later, the Gail android returns and interferes with Gail's Bible reading and prayer on Skype so that the Jesuits and Church of Gail cannot hear her prayers anymore. Instead, they hear a Korean rap dance in place of Gail's voice, which the Gail android has used to block Gail's spirit from reaching the Jesuits or Church of Gail. Once the Gail android blocked Gail's prayers from reaching the Jesuits and Church of Gail, the Gail android went on a blitzkrieg attack on the Jesuit fleet, and Jesuits dropped like flies. Gail continues to talk with Terrance on Skype. She can talk, but her prayers and Bible readings over Skype have been sabotaged by the Gail android. The Gail android goes on a blitzkrieg on Church of Gail, and Gail's men drop like flies. Terrance reports to Gail that Matthew McConaughey blasted to his death, that Gerard Butler's bottom half blew off, and that Hugh Jackman was whining in pain. Gail continues to pray and pleads to Jesus for a rescue from the Gail android. Gail learned from Oswald Chambers, My Utmost for His Highest, her reading for this day, that her faith must not be in any experiences but in God alone, regardless of the circumstances. God tests us to see if we will continue to trust Him even though our circumstances make no sense. We are never to have faith in our circumstances, experiences, or feelings, or even in our own faith, but in the person of God Himself. Jesus told Gail He loved My utmost for His highest, so she felt approaching this situation from this perspective would honor God. Note of interest: Oswald Chambers died ministering to soldiers in World War I, so apparently using him for devotional readings is wise because he was involved with warfare, which unfortunately has been a major part of Gail's life. Using this approach, Gail praises God for everything and says she knows Romans 8:28 is true, even if all the world is crumbling around her. So in the intensity of battles, as the Gail android rampaged against her men and bodies fell like flies, Gail prays and states that her faith in God is not shaken and she believes in Him. As the death toll mounts, Zach Knight asked to talk to Gail on Skype. Gail, we're getting demolished over here. Us Jesuits have decided that we're going to go on a kamikaze mission, a suicide mission, and ram ourselves into Gail. I just want you to know I've always loved you, and I wish I could have been on your marriage list. I love you right now too, Zach. All's forgiven. Have you all said that prayer to ask Jesus to save you? Yes, we all did. I even said it, Gail. You Jesuits will go to heaven then. I'll see you there. You're so brave and heroic. I think Jesus will do something for you. He has to honor such courage. I know you'll go to heaven. You have my utmost respect, and I will get down on the floor and pray for you Jesuits. Tell the Jesuits I love them. Okay, signing off. Here we go. Sorry about all the yeast I gave you. Not a problem, Zach. I'm praying for you. You all are heroes. Gail goes down to the floor and prays flat on her face, pleading with Jesus, while the android Gail devastates Church of Gail and the Jesuit fleet. The Jesuits ram into Gail and hit her with everything they have. That's the Gail android. Terrance reports that Church of Gail scientists have decided they must also carry out a suicide mission, that what the Jesuits did was not enough to stop the Gail android. Church of Gail breaks into pieces. The bodies of Zach Knight and Rule 13 float into space. The android Gail even shoots something at the Jesuit souls as they depart the body after death, floating in space, apparently trying to sabotage their ascension to heaven as the Jesuit souls try to head towards heaven after death. Suddenly, Gail opens a wormhole towards heaven and heads towards heaven, shooting her fire at the angel or cherubim wings and setting their wings aflame. The android Gail departs Earth and heads towards heaven, apparently distracted, taking the dead bodies and the Jesuit fleet and Church of Gail with her into the wormhole, presumably to take on God. Gail is not sure, but she believes that God had heard her prayers and wanted to get Jesus to her to rescue the world, but he wanted to make sure God was the Lord of our lives and that our worship of him was not contaminated by any sin of idolatry before he would risk his reputation to do a great miracle for us. The Gail android appeared to try to block his miraculous intervention by contaminating the atmosphere with her music that idolized worship of the body and sex, which is a Jesuit idol. Gail believes the android Gail did this knowing God's character, hoping that the Jesuits would be tricked and would think that Gail supplied this music for them because Gail no longer believes all rock music is sinful. And the android Gail wanted the Jesuits to then be contaminated with idol worship so that God would not want to save us from her. Gail's horrible music she blasted every time Gail prayed, because the android Gail did not want Gail's prayers to be strengthened through numbers, and made it so that her followers could not hear Gail pray or read the Bible. The android Gail hoped to ensure that God would decide not to miraculously intervene in answer to Gail's prayers. However, Gail's prayers did have enough power that once the Jesuits died, as their souls ascended towards heaven, it intensified the Holy Spirit power in the atmosphere enough to overcome the evil force generated by the Gail android, so that Jesus and his forces started their ascent from heaven onto the Gail android. Apparently a martyr's death because of the true worship of Jesus, where Jesus is worshipped above everything, above any Bible, above any person, above anything, has great spiritual power with God. And this overcame the spirit of the android Gail enough so that she knew she better go to heaven now to deal with another impending battle, one against God himself. The android Gail knew that with all these brave Jesuits and Church of Gail people dead, that God was getting ready to rescue his favorite, Gail. So she better do something, so she decided to be proactive and headed straight towards heaven, injuring angels on the way there. Jesus, it appears, sent in the cherubims or angels first in order to lure the android Gail away from Earth so that the battle would take place far away from Earth and spare casualties on Earth. The android Gail, realizing what was happening, decided to be proactive and take out as much of his forces as possible before she had to take on God himself. Gail believes that the android Gail is so powerful that even Satan can't take her on. But Gail had faith in her Lord and believed that when the android Gail got to Jesus Christ and God himself, she would be defeated or at least put away somewhere where she could no longer bring harm to Earth. Gail spoke to Terence. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. The android Gail cannot win this battle. She has dared to take on God himself. I praise you, Jesus, for all that has happened. I believe in Romans 8:28. By the way, Jesus, your will be done. But could you resurrect Matthew McConaughey and my men who have fallen? I'm going to miss him. But if not, at least he's in heaven now. He's in a better place. Barack Obama calls Terence and says he is aware of what has happened and that Zach Knight will get the Medal of Honor and the Jesuits and Church of Gail will all get Purple Hearts. Terence reports that Brent Spiner got sucked up into the wormhole that headed for heaven, but that he was not dead, just injured. It appears Gerard Butler and Matthew McConaughey died, as well as the entire Jesuit fleet, except about 3 Jesuits. I really appreciate you, Barack Obama. You have always stood by me and my men. I voted Republican my entire life, but because of your extreme loyalty to me and my men at all times, I had to support you in your run for president. Barack Obama gives Gail a salute. That was actually his automaton. Gail finds it amazing that God spared Terence so that he could speak to Gail after the android Gail and Church of Gail and the Jesuit fleet disappeared into the wormhole that went towards heaven. Terence states that he was inside a part of Church of Gail that broke off, and he had enough oxygen to last about 3 hours, and that NASA was coming. Gail tells Terence God did this on purpose because he wanted to reassure me that this was all part of his plan so that I wouldn't worry, and that's why he allowed you to remain behind so you could talk to me. It's miraculous that you were spared, and this will be continued.